So we've got a lot of change coming in the sector with the resources and waste strategy and the three main bits of the recycling reforms that we're expecting. Consistency, collections consistency, that is where obviously we're still subject to a lot of uncertainty. We've been waiting for a long time. It's been 2 years since the consultation, and we're still waiting for the government response on that. And we really do need that before we can kick off and really get going in the investment and in the change that we really need to see. We need that final confirmation on what the different items are, what the different materials are that are going to be consistently collected across the country. We need to know the timelines. We need to know when all this is meant to be happening. At the moment, it's set. We're expecting, or we were anticipating, that 2025 would be the kick-off date for consistency. But that timeline is now looking really tight when you think about all of the practical changes and things that are going to have to happen going forward. We also need to know, and we still need clarity on a range of other topics. So on EPR, we need to know about the payments, what the payments to local authorities are going to look like, how that's going to be structured. We need to know about the modulated fees that the producers are going to pay. That's a really important issue for ESA, because what we want to see is some of the more difficult to recycle formats being pushed off the market, and the modulated fees, that's the tool that's going to do that. But when it comes to consistency, there are a lot of practical things that are going to need to be delivered before we can implement these changes, or as part of the implementation of these changes. And ESA has been doing a lot of work with RAP, looking at what some of the changes might mean for existing facilities, in particular looking at sorting plants, looking at MRFs. Last year, ESA did a survey of our members' sorting plants, and we found that around 95% of facilities are going to need some sort of adjustments in order to meet the new requirements. There are some very simple things, some very basic things. So over half of the facilities that we surveyed are going to struggle to find space just for the new sampling requirements. And also, we think that around 1 in 4 facilities are going to need major, complete reconfigurations. And that, for some of those plants, that could require downtime of up to 12 months. So there's going to be a lot of complications in terms of all these different facilities needing upgrades, different lengths of downtime coming into effect. We think the whole programme could take 3 years. That's just to upgrade existing facilities. And that's before we even start to think about the investment that's going to be required in new facilities, in the new sites, identifying new sites, also getting planning permission, permitting, which has been a challenge in recent years, as well as commissioning and constructing those sites. So a lot to do, a lot going on, and we are working hard, along with other stakeholders, trying to push DEFRA, push the government to make sure that they give us the clarity that we need to invest as an industry. There are lots of different things that the Environment Agency and regulators should be doing to make it harder for waste criminals operating in our sector. First thing we should be doing is making it harder for criminals to enter the sector in the first place. It was 2018, 5 years ago, when in the Resources and Waste Strategy, proposals were set out for carriers, brokers, dealers reform to make it tighter and to bring those activities into the permitted sector. We're still waiting for the government to come out with confirmation of how that's going to work, and that's a really important reform for us, alongside digital waste tracking, which we're also expecting to come in a similar timeframe. The second thing is to stop those waste criminals from being able to get their hands on material. I think stronger application of duty of care would go a long way to stopping material slipping out of the hands of the legitimate sector. And we need to be stopping criminal activity much faster where it's happening. It cannot be right that we are still looking at 3, 4, 5 years as a length of time it takes to prosecute and to close down sites that are acting outside the boundaries of their permit. We need to be making it harder for waste crime to be such a profitable activity for people who are willing to act unscrupulously. Part of that is providing a much stronger disincentive. The fine should fit the crime. Too often we see really weak penalties, really light fines that are just seen as a cost of doing business, as has been recognised by the Public Accounts Committee, as has been recognised by the Environment Agency themselves. We really need to be doing a lot more to put in place tougher penalties and applying tougher penalties to really act as a disincentive. There are two main areas that we're looking at as ESA to address the management of plastic waste. The first of those is looking upstream, it's looking at consumers, and we're working with the British Plastics Federation on a campaign to help to encourage more recycling and better recycling of plastics. And then at the same time we're also looking downstream at the outputs, and we're working with Recoup, with the Recycling Association and with the BPF again to develop standards for different grades of plastics to make sure that we're producing stuff that's of the highest possible quality and suitable for end markets. As part of our strategic objective on raising standards across the sector, we're always keen to look at areas where perhaps as an industry we're perhaps slightly less mature. We want to be a bit more forward-looking in terms of some of the areas that we look at. And two in particular that we've been exploring in recent months have been around social value and biodiversity. On social value, we've just released a series of case studies, video case studies of some of the good work and good practice that some of our members are already putting into place, and we've released those to support our social value charter that we published earlier in the year. On biodiversity, we published a best practice guide, and we're doing further work. We've commissioned consultants to help us look at how our members can be nature net positive, and we'll be doing further work looking at a business case to see how in the future some of these biodiversity improvements that we're putting into place might be supported by policy and might actually be monetised going forward. One of the great things about ESA is the knowledge sharing and the briefings that we do for our members, but we know that not everyone is able to make it into London. So we thought we would share some updates on what we're up to and what's going on in the sector for our members here on this channel, and we'd very much appreciate some feedback to let us know what you think and more about what you'd like to hear in these updates going forward.